Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. Rirchard French on assignment tonight. He will join us later on in the program. Well, tonight is the night, the big show, the final presidential debate before Election Day. The race is in a dead heat as we prepare for the two candidates to square off on foreign policy. For more, we turn to ABC's Karen Travers. She joins us now live from the site of tonight's debate, that at Boca Raton in Florida, as we toss it now to Karen. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening. Tonight here in Florida, President Obama and Mitt Romney will square off on foreign policy. This is it, their final opportunity to make their case to a large national audience.
It's the showdown in the Sunshine State. Foreign policy hasn't received the same attention this year as the economy, but recent events have turned the focus overseas. Tonight, President Obama and Mitt Romney are expected to spar over the administration's handling of the attack in Libya, the violence in Syria, and Iran. The New York Times reported this weekend that the Obama administration has agreed in principle to one-on-one talks with Iran about its nuclear program.
Also leaves you a very simple question to Mitt Romney. If there was a possibility for face-to-face negotiations, one-on-one, would you do that or risk another war?
Romney aides say this could be a tougher debate for their candidate, and that may not just be the typical lowering expectations game. Recent polls show the president has the advantage on foreign policy, and his campaign is out with a new TV ad today, making sure voters know his record.
President Obama ended the Iraq War. Obama's brought 30,000 soldiers back from Afghanistan.
Last week, the president jokingly previewed his debate message.
Spoiler alert, we got bin Laden.
The first ABC News Washington Post daily tracking poll out today found a razor-tight race. But another new poll today in Ohio shows the president up 5, a significant lead in the state that both sides say could decide this race.
Look for both candidates to try to work in domestic policy as well tonight, using China to turn the focus to the U.S. economy and their push for job creation. Reporting live from Boca Raton, Karen Travers, ABC News. Back to you.
All right, Karen, thank you very much. Now, we have a lot coming up tonight on RFL. We're going to preview what you're going to see during tonight's debate and what to look out for. Also, races to watch. We're going to hone in on some of the most hotly contested races across our region. We're also going to remember the late George McGovern and the legacy he left behind. But we begin with the stakes of the race, which are pretty high today. We are now just 15 days out from the election. The race, as you just heard from Karen Travers, neck and neck. President Obama had about $100 million cash on hand at the end of September. Mitt Romney had about $63 million, plenty of cash to spread their message and get out the vote. Also, you got the Republican Party. You add that to Mitt Romney's total. Combined, they got $34 million more than the Obama campaign plus the Democratic Party. And in terms of enthusiasm, Romney is winning there as well. Of his supporters, more than 70% say they are voting for him because they think he is the best man for the job. Among Obama supporters, that number is only 56%. And joining us now to sound off on the state of the race, our own Rirchard French. He joins us live now tonight from Passaic, New Jersey, where he's less than an hour away from kicking off a congressional debate between Representative Bill Pascrell and Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. And Rich, good evening. What are you looking forward to tonight?
Well, when it comes to the presidential debate, I think everybody would agree, and I'll get into this with our panel, that of the three debates, at least subject matter and certainly format, it's going to favor the president tonight. Mitt Romney's supporters have said, hey, if we get out of this thing with a draw, we'll take it. That said, I think one of the things that's come out of these polls, especially in the swing states, is people aren't necessarily eager to, in effect, give the president 4 more years in the job, but they're also equally hesitant to fire him. And I think that in the end, the next 2 weeks is going to be about the comfort level the American public, certainly the undecided electorate, has with this president. And I think tonight might go a long way. He's got to come across as presidential. He's got to point out the differences where they are between himself and Mitt Romney. And I think he's just got to make people feel in the next 2 weeks that he has a plan for the next 4 years, articulate it, and then obviously sell it. I think if he does that, you and I have said through the numbers here, he's got a chance, a better than average chance of winning. But if he can't close the deal here, I think the advantage goes to the challenger. So you can't overstate the stakes of both tonight here and really the calendar. Both these guys got a lot to both lose and gain.
You know, with you're talking about the voters not sure that they want to give Obama another 4 years, but not sure that they want to fire him, it almost sounds like you're saying this race might be a bit of a referendum on Mitt Romney going forward.
You know, I think people at this point, after his surprise showing how well he came out in that first debate, I think people had formed a narrative of him, and I think he came across on the stage as a credible candidate, somebody who says, you know what, if he gets the keys to the White House, he's not going to burn the place down, so he's an alternative. That being said, they still looked for both men here to lay out exactly what, if elected, the next 4 years in America would look like. I think people, while not comfortable with the economy, see that it's at least trending upward, that the metrics say things will be better. How much better? Certainly open for debate. What will and won't get cut, who will and won't get tax cuts, certainly open for debate. But they want the vision thing, and they haven't gotten it yet. And I certainly think from the foreign policy side, the president's going to articulate that, hey, look what I did over the last 4 years. Polls show that I'm the leader in the clubhouse in this subject. And I think what you're going to hear from Mitt Romney is there's not much difference between the two of us. Whether that's fair or not, that's up to the president to at least distinguish. So it'll be an interesting 90 minutes this evening. All
right, our own Rirchard French live tonight in Passaic, New Jersey. Rich, we'll check back in with you a little bit later on in the program. So as Rich mentioned, as everybody's been saying, the stakes are certainly high tonight. What can we expect to hear, and what do we need to hear from each of the candidates tonight? Well, for that, let's bring in our candidates, our panel for the evening. We'll start with Jeanne Zaino. She is a dean and professor of political science at Iona College. And there's Dominic, political journalist and author. Welcome, guys. Welcome. What do you think we need to hear from the candidates tonight? Is there one particular message? I mean, Rich was talking about how this could be a little bit of a referendum on Mitt Romney tonight, make sure he doesn't burn the place down. Is that the downside for Mitt Romney tonight? One gaffe and he could puncture all the the boost that he's given his campaign over the last 3 weeks?
But I think that's true for both candidates. You know, you make a gaffe, a big gaffe, and that could be problematic for both candidates. I think Rich was absolutely right. What Mitt Romney managed to do that first debate was to dispel all the rumors that the Obama administration had spread about him over the summer, that he was some kind of, crazy lunatic, that he was going to, as Rich said, burn down the White House. He came out that first debate and he said to the American public, that's not the case. And the American public saw a different side of Mitt Romney, a new Mitt Romney, one that the Obama administration hadn't been talking about. So that said, he has to make sure that he doesn't, regress, that, that he stays, even-keeled, that he gives the president respect. I mean, it's very hard to go up in a foreign policy debate against the commander-in-chief. You have to have respect for the commander-in-chief. And a little bit of a challenge for him is going to be showing that he's different. I mean, one of the really difficult points for both of them is their foreign policy is very similar substantively. So they've got to kind of differentiate themselves from the other one, and that's going to be a challenge for both of them.
I couldn't agree more with everything that the dean just said. Well said. I think that that first debate, being on the same, and I'm taking a broader view right now, being on the same stage as the president. Let's take the president's performance, platform performance, put it to the side for a second. Being on the same stage with the president, that has helped Mr. Romney. It always helps the challenger because you end up looking presidential. And he has been able to do an effective job and win debate 1, lost debate 2, but still an effective job. And so I think that you're not going to see Romney make any mistake tonight. But what's interesting is that when it comes to foreign policy, historically, this is supposed to be the stronghold, if you will, of the Republican candidate.
Always has been.
Always has been, historically. And now we have this Democrat that came into the office, President Obama, with not much foreign policy experience and hit a home run. And so he has the credentials. But now the president, because of what's happened in Libya, finds himself a bit behind the 8 ball. So the president, I think, is going to try and establish himself as presidential. Look, I have a track record. I got bin Laden. I have eased tensions up until recently throughout the world. And so he's going to try and sell that message. And Mr. Romney's going to sell one of, we may not be different on many issues, but when you add up the president's failures, I'm a much better leader than he is.
Is Mitt Romney playing defense tonight, a do-no-harm approach, or is he still trying to score points and go for a knockout against President Obama?
You know, I think he still has to score points. And I'll tell you what I think he has to do is I think he has to say, it doesn't make sense for us to differentiate between foreign and domestic policy. You can't have a strong foreign policy without a strong economy. So I think what we're going to see is Mitt Romney try to say yes, 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 but the president has failed in terms of employment, he has failed in terms of the economy, he has failed in terms of the deficit, and we can't be strong abroad if we're not strong at home. So I think we're going to have to see him make some of those moves and do that successfully, and really lay claim to the fact that it doesn't make sense anymore in the 21st century to differentiate the debates the way that we have.
Totally agree with you on the pivot. There were some other things in there too, but the speed.
You never say that to me.
The speed and frequency with which
Yes.
both men on stage tonight are going to pivot off the actual question on foreign policy and shift back to domestic policy. It's going to give people whiplash. You can count it on hands, toes.
But when you mention the economy, that is the 800-pound gorilla, elephant, whatever, in the room. And what it seems based on polling, Americans are buying the argument as Mitt Romney, the businessman that can fix the economy, and they're no longer buying the argument in which up until now, effectively, the president had taught Mr. Romney for his Bain years and shipping all the jobs, if you will, overseas. So it seems like for right now, Romney's winning that narrative, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
I will debate you on that point one day when I'm sitting in my normal seat as opposed to standing here.
Fair enough.
We will get to that. I am marking that down. We're going to keep this conversation going online. We want you to get involved. Here's what you do. Head over to Facebook or jump on Twitter and sound off. Who do you trust more to manage America's foreign policy? That's what we're asking. Of course, your response is coming up on a future edition of RFL. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to be joined by a foreign policy expert who's going to explain all of the issues you need to know about that are going to pop up in tonight's debate. That is next when RFL returns.